Hello everybody and welcome to my top 5 best and worst games that I played in 2016. This is going to be a much more abridged version than previous years because I don't feel like I need to justify my decisions because they're just mine. And it's based on games I played, so I can't put in any games that I didn't play, so if a game is missing that you think, wow, that was terrible, that's why. So we're just going to do a little bit of a shorthand version this year rather than do nothing at all because I kind of left it a little late. So we'll get started here and enjoy. By all means, also share your best and worst things you played this year in the comments below. Thanks for watching. At number 5 on the best list is Enter the Gungeon, and I'm sure you're already familiar with how many hours I've put into this. It's probably my favourite roguelike that I've played this year from Dodge Roll Games, available on PC, Mac and PS4. I enjoy it a whole bunch. I'm sure you've seen some of the videos and will understand why. It's got a lot of replayability. The devs are supporting it. They put a lot of time into it. The free update that's coming is taking a little bit longer than I would like, but it's a free update, so you can't really complain. So that's why it's on the list. I really like it, and I highly recommend it, especially because at the time of me posting this, it's in the Steam Christmas sale. At number 4 on the best list is Final Fantasy 15, despite some issues that I had with the Chapter 13 onwards of Final Fantasy 15, where it kind of all goes to crap from a gameplay perspective. Prior to that, I was actually having a surprising amount of fun with it, more than I thought I would. That might be down to me streaming it live, I'm not sure, but I love the combat system. It's very similar to Kingdom Hearts, so I suppose that isn't really a surprise. And I like the characters. The start was a little slow, and if you let yourself get bogged down in side quests, I could absolutely understand why you wouldn't like it. But overall, despite a bad kind of final couple of chapters or so, Final Fantasy 15, I enjoyed playing it through, so that's why it's in the list, and I am aware that the devs are sticking with it long term, almost as if it was like Final Fantasy 14. They are looking at the issues people are having, and they are fixing them. Like for instance, just before I started recording this video, they added a New Game Plus option because people wanted it. So they are receptive to complaints, and that also gets it some bonus points in my book. At number 3 on the best list is Deus Ex Mankind Divided. I played quite a lot of stealth action games this year, Deus Ex being one of them, Dishonored for instance as well, Hitman 2016. Of them all, Deus Ex Mankind Divided is the one I enjoyed the most. I like Adam Jensen as a character, I think his voice actor is great. I like the gameplay style and world of Mankind Divided. That doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong with those other games I mentioned, Hitman and Dishonored. It just, of all of them that I played this year, I had the most fun doing my stabby playthrough of Mankind Divided. And it had a good story. It had a very abrupt, sudden final mission, which is the only real downside I can think of. And the DLC's been lackluster, but I never really include that anyway. Overall, I still had a positive experience with it, and it is the best stealth action game I played this year. At number 2 on the best list is Dark Souls 3. I do have issues with the Dark Souls games in general, but Dark Souls 3 had the production values, it had the gameplay, it had, I guess to a certain extent, the story, it had the looks. It definitely had problems, but I can't deny that I did have fun playing it. I imagine if I hadn't played it through with friends, and that includes the DLC as well, I probably would have been pulling my hair out at it. As it is, I played it in the optimal situation, I guess is what you could say. So I liked it. Does it have problems? Absolutely, but it is one of the best things I played this year, and it's right up there, so that's why it's at number 2. At number 1 on the best list of games I played in 2016 that were also released this year is Overwatch. I guess it's probably no surprise, given that it's helped catapult my channel to over 100,000 subscribers, etc. But that is not why it's on the list. I wouldn't have played it in the first place if I didn't like it. I played TF2 for about 8 years. It's a gameplay type that I really enjoy, this character-based shooter, essentially. After a certain period, TF2 kind of got boring, and I didn't have anything to fill the void. No other character-based game like that existed that took my fancy. And Overwatch wasn't really on my radar either, and then I tried it I got convinced by my friends to try it in the beta, and I was like, wow, this is TF2 with more character, this is exactly what I want. And yes, the devs do make stupid decisions in regards to balance. I'm not happy with every aspect of the game right now at the time of me making this, but I still can't deny that I put hours and hours into this game, and I still love it. Again, you can complain about something and still like it, so I would say if you take away one thing from this, it's that. Overwatch is still probably the thing I put the most hours into this year, I plan to play it for a lot longer, and it's just really enjoyable. I like the world they're crafting. They just have to fix a few things going into 2017. But of every game I played this year, Overwatch sticks out at me as being the best one. And so that's why it's at number 1. At number 5 on the worst list is World of Final Fantasy. Now I should also just state at the start of the worst list here that the worst list is usually very, very difficult to find things for, because in general I kind of manage to swerve out the way of bad games. So World of Final Fantasy made it onto this list barely because I was stretching for things I had any kind of real issue with that I played this year. It didn't do anything egregiously bad, it was just kind of dull. I didn't like the gameplay style or the visual style or the story. But that said, it doesn't do anything terrible, it's just bland. And I was bored. I didn't go back to it after my Let's Look At, I just wasn't interested in where it was going. It feels like a Final Fantasy game for the younger crowd. A good way to perhaps get your kids into Final Fantasy games safely, because it's not too grand or gory or violent or anything like that. It's very cartoony. But for me, I was bored of it. So for that reason really, and that reason alone, it is on this list. At number 4 on the worst list is Furi, which you will not have seen any coverage of on my channel. I did get a review copy for it, and I did play it, and I hated it so much I didn't want to do any videos on it. It's essentially a dueling game with incredibly tedious, very, very slow walking sections between boss battles, because there's nothing else in it but boss battles, designed to try and extend desperately the length of the game because it's incredibly short. It also has a less than normal difficulty, which insults you if you play it, because they know if you played it on that and it took away all the advantages it gives the bosses, unfair, unbalanced bonuses and advantages, that you'd finish the game with ease. I didn't like it. The visual style was very good. The fighting could have been great. The voice acting was good from what I remember, but the slow pace between boss fights, the boss fights are just all the gameplay there is, so they're extended to ridiculous lengths. The bosses get stupid advantages over you in terms of health, and when they get full health when they change form, whereas you don't. I just didn't like it, which is why I didn't do any coverage on it. I do not recommend Furi at all. At number 3 on the worst list is Salt and Sanctuary, which I did do a series on, which I abandoned at part 19 or 20 because I was just sick of the game. The Dark Souls gameplay loop does not work well in 2D, sadly, and Salt and Sanctuary is the game that it took to realise that. Couple it with a visual style that is jarring, I guess. It's very David Firth style, which I don't like. The gameplay could have been better, and I'm not hating on it too much because it is an indie game. Same with Furi, really. It's hard to find games for the worst list, and usually I don't include indie games because I don't think it's fair to match them up against all the AAA games I play in a year. But I can't deny that I was disappointed with Salt and Sanctuary by the end, when all the bad parts of its gameplay just came to the forefront, and I just got bored and sick of it towards the end. So sadly, that is why it's smack dab in the middle of this list. At number 2 on the worst list is another game I didn't do any coverage of for the channel, Warhammer 40,000 Eternal Crusade, the big battleground brawler thingy that came onto Steam fairly recently, back in September. I tried it briefly when it first got launched. I had been following it. It's been in development for a long time. I think it changed hands once, and I hated it. The gameplay was clunky. I don't know why they didn't just copy the control style of Space Marine, which was fine. It worked for the kind of thing they're going for, and it plays in a very visually similar style, yet they still managed to arse up the gameplay. You don't feel powerful as a Space Marine, you die too quickly. It's got bad hitboxes, it's got laggy gameplay, despite the fact it doesn't look that great. It's just a badly made game, and that's why I didn't do any coverage on it either, because I couldn't think of one redeeming thing to say other than, I guess, the visual style of the various races, Elder, Orcs, Space Marines. They got those pretty spot on, but couple that with standard ridiculous Game Workshop related prices because they charge so much for their license, it's just a bad game, sadly. And then number 1 on the worst list is No Man's Sky. If you follow me on Twitch, you will have seen me play this. I didn't bother porting anything over to YouTube, but I did play it on stream, and I played it for an hour off camera after that just to make sure it was as bad as I thought it was, so then I could get my refund. No Man's Sky is terrible. It's just absolutely terrible. It ran like ass when it first launched. There is nothing to do in it. It's pretty. That's about all it's got going for it. The research system in it, the lack of progression really, and the ultimate goal just being to essentially enter New Game Plus, all combined together just made me despise it with an active passion. Couple that with their very dodgy, let's say, pre-release banter about everything you could do in the game. There's a fantastic video or two going around pointing out every time they didn't see what's actually in the game. Let's see, I'm not going to say lie because that could be libel, but there's a lot of videos pointing out things that could be construed as lies about things they said would be in the game that just aren't. And that is unacceptable. No Man's Sky is definitely the worst game I played this year. Avoid it like the plague. Even if you could get it for 90% off, I would say it's not worth it. There's indie games that do that system better. You could just look at, say, Starbound, or there's a new one called Astroneer, I think, which is essentially the same thing but done better, and it's in beta stage, or alpha even. No Man's Sky is terrible. It is the worst thing I played in 2016. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in 2017. Ta-ta for now.